I'm Jake Aaron Villarreal, born and raised in Silicon Valley, and here to take you behind the scenes to share what it's like to be a startup founder, their journey they're on, the problems they face, and the products they build in an effort to transform industries. I'm excited to have with us today Sourabh Gupta, co founder and CEO of Skit.ai. Sourabh, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thanks for coming. And just a little bit more about Sourabh's company, Skit.ai. It's a global conversational AI startup launched in 2016 to enhance consumer brand engagement through artificial intelligence. With over 200 employees, Skit AI serves 100 plus clients in the US, Canada, and India. Saurabh has earned multiple awards, including Forbes 30 Under 30, and we're happy to have him here with us today. Before we get started here, Saurabh, where are you joining us from?
Oh, I'm in New York City.
Very, very cool. I love New York, lived there for a while, and it's just a lot of energy, a lot of technology, and a lot of startups in New York City. Um, Before we talk about your company, Skit AI, give us a little background of yourself. Where are you originally from, and what's your origin story? How did you get into technology, and what was the idea behind building Skit?
Yeah. So I'm born and raised in a small city in the northern part of India. And as you know, pretty much there for the first 18 years of my life, ended up in my undergrad. Even before I wanted to, go to college, I sort of knew I wanted to build a company. Where I'm from, 95% of people around have some sort of a business, even if it is like a small a setup. So that was very natural to me in some sense. I wanted to start a company. I went to college. I had no idea it took to build a company. But I do remember in my third year, I wanted to drop out. Parents didn't let me. They didn't believe I could build a company. Wanted me to get a degree. I completed my 4 years, my degree, and then I went to Bangalore straight away. Sort of started in the final semester itself, but I went to Bangalore, spent a couple of months figuring out what to do. My co-founder in college, so we both sort of moved and spent a couple of months figuring out what to do. We knew we wanted to work on the edge of technology. Way we were thinking about it back then was, we were 22, 23-year olds, right? Like, we were like, hey, what can we do which, where we have an advantage over anyone else, who's much more experienced and older. We said, we understand technology. AI, at that point of time, today we talk about LLMs, but even back then, 2016, deep learning was a thing. Deep learning is so new. The papers have come up in the last couple of years. So why don't we read those and, we can be an expert in that. So we got into that. And then eventually we got into, voice within AI. Then we were like, let's pick voice. Then we got into call center, so that's sort of how it happened.
Yeah, that's great. Is this your first startup?
Oh, yeah, it is.
Yeah, really cool. It's interesting. There's a lot of companies that start, but the founders have done this two or three or four times before, and they've learned a lot, and they come into that new opportunity, and they really know the direction they want to take the company, and they're very clear on how to do it. But the first time founder, there's a lot more learning because you're really building the plane as you fly it, and you don't always have the answers. And it seems like you have made a lot of good decisions and right decisions. What's the size of, of your company today in terms of employees again?
Yeah, I mean, we're close to like 200 odd employees. We have over 100 customers. We have business in India, North America, etc. I think there are like both sides to it. Starting up without any experience. Not only it's our first startup, we've also not worked anywhere in our lives. So many of the things we had to figure out from scratch. We were a two-member company, and then we became a 20-member company, and then we were like, oh shit, there's a concept of HR policies. That need to be there because we didn't even know it existed. We've never worked anywhere, so there's a lot of that learning also that happens. But yeah, I mean, it worked out very well for us, so no complaints.
Yeah. God, that's amazing. Well, you look at the market and you think about AI and you think about all the areas that it can be applied. When you thought about your company, and again, we always look at what's the business opportunity, what problem can you solve, and is it valuable enough for a company to pay for that service?
Yeah.
What was the niche you started in and targeted, and what niche are you in today?
Yeah, I think like what we started off with was We've all called call centers in our lives, and the experience is terrible. Right? You call these call centers, and then you have to wait for God knows how long to even get a basic query answered. So that's something we knew, and we started, and that's something we saw there was a real problem, and we saw that AI could solve that problem. When we talked to people on the other side, the people who run call centers, they were equally frustrated, their own reasons, and that's the niche we saw, and we went deep into it. What we are doing right now is a niche of the same problem. Right now, what we are solving is the debt management problem, right, in the world. And this is basically, you owe a debt. It could be a credit card debt, a medical debt, etc. How businesses engage with you. Obviously, as a patient or a consumer, you're frustrated that you owe debt. You have a million questions. You might not have the money, and so on and so forth. And then on the other hand, the collection companies or the collection agencies get a bad rep. So we are trying to bridge that gap right now.
Well, debt is something that a lot of us at some point in our lives face. Um, and we get that call, and
Yeah,
it's from a debt collector, and you know, you try and answer it the best you can. At the end of the day, hopefully there's some sort of compromise you can get to, and you feel like, okay, I feel pretty good about paying what I paid, and that was an invoice I never saw, or whatever. Um, what's your product do differently than, say, someone calling in and trying to collect money?
yeah. I think, like, first of all, many people have questions about the debt. Right. So I'll give you a personal example. Last year, I undergo a surgery. It was a small surgery, just like 2 hour surgery, and did not even stay overnight in the hospital. I got it in NYU in New York, and guess the amount I had to pay for the surgery? $97,000. Uh,
Whoa.
I'm not saying that's the first invoice I got. $97,000 from NYU for an appendicitis surgery, which is very regular, surgery.
Yeah.
You don't stay overnight, and so on and so forth. And that's a lot of money to invoice. So I think the problem starts at that level, wherein first my question is, how can it be that kind of amount? Right? What are the different components of that, and so on and so forth. So I won't get into the details. It's still a case which is undergoing. Right now, I'm at a stage where we have reduced the bill from $97,000 to $19,000. So
Okay.
first of all, that's a big difference. It's still undergoing. Like, let's see how much more they can reduce. So the problem starts from there, and eventually, to thankfully, I can afford. What if you can't afford? If you're a college student, you did not have a good insurance, and so on and so forth. So you want to be able to have these conversations. Often, what ends up happening is it's tricky to have these conversations with people who might not have full information. We build a lot of omni-channel AI, application conversational AI, where in a very non-judgmental way, it can understand what is your current financial situation. It can help you with payment plans, with settlements, etc. So you can figure it all out, all while answering your questions like, will it impact your credit score? How much payment should you do in this month, in the next month, and so on and so forth. So that's sort of how we are looking at it right now, and our product is evolving a lot because this is a huge, massive problem across verticals.
Yeah. When you started your company, it was way before ChatGPT came out, and that's really brought all companies in AI up a level in terms of interest and what they're solving and where they're doing it.
Yeah,
Um, so timing wise, it sounds like it's always good to be ahead of the curve. It sounds like you were there.
yeah.
Um, when you look at the product itself, who are you selling it to? Who's interested in your technology?
Sure. You see, first of all, we have a point of view on ChatGPT itself, or LLMs. And we were talking about it briefly, earlier. I think there were companies that were doing some sort of AI even back in 2010, right, or even before that. There was some sort of technology, and then deep learning came in 2014, 15, somewhere around that. Then startups came in that were doing AI. Now LLMs have come in, and we are seeing like new startups that have new .ai companies that have come in and doing. From what we have seen, performance is just improving with these new kind of models. So with LLMs, we don't see like a dramatic change in the world, but definitely very positive. We are very optimists about LLMs. It has improved our performance, what it was before, but it's not like things were not happening before. They sort of were. Whom do we sell to? We sell to anyone and everyone who has collections in their organization. So it could be a company that just does collections, or it could be a bank, a hospital, auto finance company, or a captive, or anyone who has anything to do with collections. We help them manage their conversations with their end users.
Got it. When I think of a company that's doing debt collection, I think of a bullpen of, 50 people or 100 people in a call center with a list of targets to call and, I got to track this person down that didn't pay their bill for mortgage or they didn't pay their bill for medical and just from a churn perspective, if you're one of those people that are smiling and dialing and trying to collect, it's probably commission based. It's probably a lot of emotional conversations.
Yeah.
And there's probably a good burnout in that space too. So, is your product something that automates those calls? Like
Yeah.
for the listeners that don't know your product, kind of walk us through the journey of when they get your product, what exactly it does, and how does it work?
Yeah, so a product will typically be deployed customer, and this customer could be like a bank, insurance company, action agency, auto finance company, etc. That how that helps is it does automatic reach outs to people. So let's say you owe a bank a debt, and so we will start reminding you first of all, even before your due date is there, that it's your due date coming up, and in a very so trying to help the user. For example, if you don't pay by your due date, you have to pay interest. You don't want to pay interest if you can afford to pay before, but sometimes you forget. So we start with these reminder calls, and then depending on the bucket you're in, like it could be 0 to 30, 30 to 60 days, however late it is, we have strategies to have discussions with you. More often than not, businesses are also very okay settling with lesser amount than the debt. Very often, there are payment plans. You don't have to pay everything upfront. Like you can stagger it for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So our bots are able to have these conversations with end users on, SMS, message, email. Voice is the primary medium. So we are able to make phone calls. We also are deployed inbound. So if you are making a phone call to the bank to talk about debt or a collection agency, you'll likely talk to a bot. But there's also very strong interface with human agents. So we also believe AI is not at a stage where like, 90% of people are not needed. I think it's automating some part, but we need a very good marriage of humans with AI. So we solve a lot of those interface problems. If you're transferring the call, is the human getting the full context? Will they pick up the call and they're able to have those conversations?
Yeah, I got it. That sounds cool. Talking to bots can sometimes be positive and negative. I mean, the positive is you can get right to the answers you want. Hopefully, it's giving you the right responses. And the negative is sometimes you want that person that you can talk to, and you might be off script. It could be a question that maybe the bot doesn't know, and then you
Yeah.
kind of feel like, give me a real person. How do you compete
Yeah.
against that?
That's a very valid and very good point you make, because this is where we spend most of our time. I believe the real problem or the hard problem is to actually be very customer centric or end user centric while trying to collect money. And that is where we believe is the real answer, because for most of these businesses, be it a bank or a hospital, like you want to care about your users. Also, just selfishly from a business point of view, they're going to keep coming back. I went to NYU. Sure, I got a surgery done, but it's not like I'm not going to need a hospital. If for nothing else, my regular, checkups and stuff like that. So you want your users to keep coming back. This is where we invest a lot of our time and energy. So any of our products that are deployed, you will typically see, if you say, oh, I want to talk to an agent, I want to talk to a representative, we transfer the calls right away. If it's a call at 3 a.m. in the night and there are no representatives, we take that data, we tell them we're going to call you back, as soon as our offices open up, and so on and so forth. So that customer centricity is at the heart of our product.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it's fascinating. You can listen to an actual call on your website. So if you go to skit.ai, you can actually hear what it sounds talking to a bot. It sounds, I mean, I couldn't really tell it was a bot.
Yeah.
So the technology is advanced a ton, which is very, very cool to hear and see. Um, why is this space important to you?
Yeah, I think like over time it has become important, especially after like my experience last year, getting this surgery, and then I've started talking to people about it, and I realized that more often than not, like people are facing similar issues. Like either they have faced it themselves, or one of their friends went through a similar process with someone calling them up, like you were saying earlier, or might get a call for a debt which I forgot to pay. All of a sudden you have a million questions. So I feel like this is a real problem, and it's a massive problem, which has become personal to me recent past. So it feels like we are at the right place at the right time, where with advancements in AI, it's very real to even solve that problem. I want to invest our time and energy in this.
Gotcha. When you're for any startup, you have to start with building a product or a service, and you got to go to market, and you got to hope that you're hitting the target.
Yeah.
When you're going out pitching and presenting your product or service to a company, who cares most about that? Who are you actually selling to? Who's that decision maker within your customer base?
Yeah. So it would be typically head of collections in larger organizations, or it would be, owners, or, CXOs in companies that primarily do collections. We sell it to them. Most of them, that you talk to, they talk the same language, right? Have these discussions where, like, we are getting a bad rep while doing all of this, but it's important even for people to clear their debt, so their credit scores are not affected, so the interest rates are check, etc. So that's our buyer. They care about their end users when they're collecting, and our product sort of fits in directly. You know,
Yeah, gotcha. What's the benefit in terms of cost? I mean, do you kind of walk through that with them of, by using your platform, you're going to reduce, the hours it takes to collect, or like as a business owner, I want to know, like, if I'm going to spend money, I want to
yeah,
save money or make money. Like
hundred percent.
what's the value exchange there?
And we keep saying this internally, that we people look at us as a software business, but we are actually an outcome driven business. We are a software business. Of course, we're selling software, but we're not selling software like, let's say, Slack sells software. You're not doing your MBRs and QBRs with Slack, asking them, oh, how many messages came in, and what is the ROI I'm getting out of it. But our MBRs and QBRs are with our customers are pretty much on the lines of, how much am I paying you? How much are you collecting out of it? So it is a direct impact that we drive, either on top line or bottom line, or both, for some of our customers. So there's that. In terms of numbers, I mean, like, it's very contextual depending on your debt type, complexity of workflows, complexity of conversations, etc. But we have seen, like, real impact where, if agents were sort of spending 100 minutes, now they're spending 70, 75 minutes.
Hmm.
On those 20, 25, 30 minutes are, either half of those conversations are happening on the board, and then the rest half by agents, or the whole conversation is happening on the board itself. Uh, in terms of, is that reflecting in, like, I mean, one of the questions people ask is, oh, does that mean, like, jobs are, going to go away or whatever? By and large, we have seen that it's very hard to attribute it to jobs, because more often than not, businesses have so much more work to do. So even the way we pitch is, you get your your agents can get freed up, and then they end up having more work to do. So they'll start calling, on more complex accounts, or bigger, debt amount, and so on and so forth. But there is a real impact. There is a real ROI in terms of what humans are doing today. Now AI is able to do. So there's cost saving.
Yeah, really cool. As an early mover in the AI for collection space, what have been some of the biggest lessons you've learned about deploying this technology at enterprise scale?
Yeah. One of our biggest learning has been, it's one thing to create a demo and say that you have a bot. A whole different thing to actually deliver value to the customer. And what I mean by that is, it is in the details. So many of those small edge cases that you have to solve. First of all, we are in a heavily compliant industry. Whenever you're making a collection call, you have to be very compliant. Like, whom can you call? When can you call them? How many times can you call them? What can you say the call? What can you not say in the call? If they respond in a certain way, what are the possible options in which we can respond? It's a heavily regulated industry, and liability risk is real. Like, companies do get sued. Making it work for in those constraints, and also deliver value to the customer, requires a lot of work. And this lot of work is like, almost dirty work. You're sitting down, you're listing down all the edge cases and solving them. So our learning is like there's no magic wand that you just integrate chat gpt or something like that, and magically collections are going to happen or anything like that. So that's our learning. I think we believe like a lot of other companies are also learning the same thing. um, you know
Yeah. Yeah, we hear a lot of the learnings going on, especially in compliance with AI and just in general. Um, when companies start, they often start with a vision and you have a direction you want to take your company, and then you evolve and you have products and services that continue to add value to your customer base. But you also sometimes have to go through shifts or pivots. What's a shift or a change of direction you've taken the company that's really was needed and helped either accelerate or solve a problem in your journey so far?
yeah, back in the days, used to be called vernacular.ai. We rebranded ourselves to Skit.ai. Vernacular means local languages and dialects. And we were that because we were sort of the first ones to build local speech to text engines in Indian languages. That was our reason to exist. The only other one back then was Google, and Google was not good in the days. Now it's pretty good. And we had no intentions to even expand outside India. We were like, we're an Indian company, and we're going to build for India. That's the journey we were in for the first 5 years of our life. 3 years ago, I decided that we had to expand outside India, primarily for TAM concerns. Than anything else, the moment you raise VC capital, there's a certain revenue scale you have to get to for it to start making sense. 3 years ago, I moved to New York City. I think that was one of the biggest shifts for us. And when I moved to New York City, I knew zero people. So, getting to a city, landing here, and all of a sudden the expectation is, oh, you're going to find product market fit, the US. So I think that was a big move and a big journey for us. Also, one of the challenging, tasks we had to do. Now, from there to over 100 customers within North America. I mean, we've come a
Wow.
long way in the last 2 3 years. So that's been very exciting.
Yeah, that's amazing. Anytime you go outside your own country, there's a lot of unknowns, whether it's, the legal system or the language or the customs and culture. There's a lot you have to kind of get up to speed on pretty quick. Have you had any guidance from anyone once you landed in the US that kind of like a coach or anyone to kind of give you direction, maybe your investors, or is it you just kind of taking the bull by the horns and learning as you go?
I mean, bit of both. Like we do have a strong support system in terms of our advisors, some of our investors well. So we do have support systems. So they're very helpful. Not like we didn't know any people in the US. We knew people in the US. Just New York City is just, all of a sudden, no one here, anything else. People here, but there was still like this cold start problem, right? Like, okay, sure, you have business in India. You maybe have large enterprises in India, but you have to expand in a new country. Where do you start? In India, we work with banks and insurance companies and airlines and telcos, and all of a sudden you are in a new country, and who's going to listen to you? And then there's other competition, so you have to figure out how you differentiate from everyone else, and you have to find a reason to exist. So you have to find a niche. So a lot of it was just pull by the horn as well, like just
Yeah.
go out there and figure out like
Yeah. Well, you know what? As a founder myself, oftentimes you're founder led with, new opportunities and sales and whatnot. And sometimes you have a team that does it for you, depends on the location. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with having to pick up a phone and make a call and get in front of somebody and, meet for a lunch and, get that 30 seconds to pitch what you have. And, someone's got to do it. You got to start somewhere. So,
yeah.
as the
And I
leader, you
think
got to lead.
yeah, I mean, at least our learning has been like a lot of these 0 to 1 things have to be like founder led. When you don't have any answers at all and you don't know what you're doing, because also because you are able to take executive decisions,
Yeah.
on the call or in the meeting itself. Usually try to do a lot of 0 to 1 things. I drive them myself, even today.
Yeah.
Getting on,
That's great.
yeah, getting my hands dirty is the only way we have learned to, build this.
Yeah. Really cool. Um, for you personally, what's been a breakthrough as you've evolved with your company as a leader that you could share with the company or with the audience where, there's a lot of engineers are thinking about building a company that might be listening, or just in general, maybe other founders that are trying to accelerate their company, looks like you've done a pretty good job. What's a breakthrough that you've personally gone through that's helped you become a better leader?
Yeah, I think like one of the things is, many of us come from like a tech or a product background, not really a sales background, because you start young, you straight out of college, so that kind of stuff. And anytime like there's a problem, I think by design, you want to go back to product, and you're like, oh, I can fix it from product, I can fix it from engineering. But I think there is no substitute to talking to customers, being in front of them. I think it's kind of textbook in some sense. But one of the things that, if I look back and think, like, if anytime there was any problem, I think intuitively my reaction ends up being, let me go talk to my product team. But my learning is I need to go and talk to my customers, understand their problems, and focus on solving them. So I think this is one of the things that everyone from engineering product background needs to, like, keep in their mind, I guess. So we're learning.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, a lot of engineers become the founders, and they have to get different experiences and skills to really build the company. So I think that's really important. Looking ahead, where do you see the biggest opportunities and threats for Skit as the AI landscape continues to rapidly evolve?
Yeah, I mean, opportunity is very clear in front of us. Like, it's a huge unsolved problem, debt management, not just in the states but worldwide. So from an opportunity point of view, we do have some markets we want to explore in the short term and the long term. So we are fairly clear. We believe it's an execution game. From a risk point of view, compliance is becoming, regulation is a real risk for us. For example, there's a regulation came in by FCC earlier this year where they said any, someone called residents of New Hampshire cloning Joe Biden's voice. And
Mm.
that resulted in FCC coming up with a regulation that any AI generated voice needs a prior consent of the user. For example, Jake, if you, let's say, you had an invoice 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I can't call you using a bot unless in your agreement with your, whoever your vendor was, who gave you that voice, there was a statement that said that vendor could call you using AI generated voice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was a sort of a collateral, damage in some sense, wherein I think they did it for more marketing and spammy use cases. So it became a gray area in collections all of a sudden. Like, can you do that? Can you not do that? And so on and so forth. So I believe like that is a real risk. Regulations are still getting ironed out. Still don't have a full picture, and we are taking some action strategically to make sure we have a balance of products, we have a balance of solutions and industries, so regulation does not impact, like, 100% at any point of time. But I would say that's a real risk for us.
Yeah. Yeah, you never know what's gonna come up in the news the next day, or something, a law can change and takes whole industries, out. So there's a lot to kind of be aware of. As you look into 2025, what's on the roadmap on the technology side that you're excited about?
Yeah, I think one thing we are getting very excited about is LLMs and the impact it can have. So imagine, like, all of our customers, we were deployed on the previous stack, and then we are deploying LLMs. Most of our stack is on LLMs now. Magically, their numbers are much higher than before. So that is something that keeps exciting us. Like, I'm very curious what OpenAI is gonna launch next, and so on and so forth. So we're very excited about advancements of AI and how it can help. Every time AI gets advanced, compliance problem also increases for us. Because the more AI can handle, the more you also have to figure out that, AI does not understand compliance. AI does not understand what, CDPA or FCGPA, or whatever these other bodies in the US have defined it to do or not to do. So I think those are things we also need to sort of work on. That's the priority for next year.
Yeah, gotcha. You know, as you continue to grow, every company has roles they need to fill and scale. And so, for the listeners, who knows, maybe there's somebody out there that might be a good fit for your company. Talk a little bit about the growth that you have coming up and some of the roles that you have a need for, and And you never know, maybe someone will hear it and connect with you directly, and you'll be all
Yeah,
set.
yeah. I mean, we are having our best quarter. This quarter is our best quarter ever, so we are kind of growing well. We are looking for GTM talent in the US. So this is sales, primarily sales, like people who can you know enterprise sales, like larger deals, etc. And in India, we are looking for R&D, so product management, engineering, machine learning, and so on. So we are open. Like you can reach out to me on LinkedIn or something.
Yeah, really cool. Okay. Well, before we finish up here, give us some insights where, if anybody wants to find you or find your company, where do they go?
Yeah, I mean, we are Skit.ai, just a website, but I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter. I don't know if we have a way to share the links.
Yeah,
Um,
we'll put
for
that
the podcast.
in the
Yeah, I'm Saurabh SG on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I don't know what I'm on as in LinkedIn, but probably put the links and
Well,
share.
we'll get all your links in the episode when we post this. And the website is skit.ai. And yeah, check them out. I think it's fascinating. I love the space you're in, and can't wait to see how things go for you the next 6, 12, 18 months. Be great to have you back on and get an update. So thanks for coming on and sharing your story. Really appreciate it, Rob. And thanks for all the listeners for listening to us on this Friday. It means a lot to us that you spent your time with us. My name is Jake Aaron Villarreal, host of the show. Signing off for now, but can't wait to catch up with you all in the next episode. Until then, take care. Before we wrap up, I want to give a big shout out to all the entrepreneurs that have joined to make this podcast possible. And for all the listeners for listening. It means the world to me that you chose to spend your time with us today. I'm your host, Jake Aaron Villarreal, signing off for now, but can't wait to connect with you all soon on the next episode. Take care. This show is sponsored by Match Relevant, a company that helps venture-backed startups find the best people in the market, and they do it in 3 simple steps. First, they sit down with founders to understand their story. Second, they tell their story into multiple candidate channels. And third, they schedule interviews within 48 hours. Find us at matchrelevant.com to learn more about how we do it.